Welcome to the 2717 podcast. I'm Javier, an authentic wedding filmmaker.
And I'm Ashley, a passionate wedding photographer.
We're here to bring Proverbs 27:17 to the wedding industry. As iron sharpens iron,
so one person sharpens another. In this fun series, we're all about sharing experiences and building a community.
Expect heartfelt stories, creative inspiration, and some amazing behind-the-scene moments.
Plus, insights from some truly inspiring guests.
Tune in to connect with us, spark your creativity,
and be a part of a supportive community.
You're listening to the 2717 podcast.
Planning your wedding isn't just about choosing a venue, it's about finding the perfect backdrop for one of the most meaningful moments of your life. That's where Juliana Estate comes in. Nestled in the heart of Lakeland, this elegant estate gives you that classic scenic charm, like a movie set, but it's all yours. Think lush greenery, romantic gardens, and plenty of room for unforgettable moments with the people you love the most. It's a place where every detail feels personal because it's not just a venue. It's where your story begins. See how Juliana Estate can make your wedding day truly yours at julianaestate.com. Thanks for sponsoring today's podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Javi.
And I'm Ashley, and you're listening to the 2717 podcast. Today, we have a super special guest that we are going to dive into all things wedding planning with. This is Holly with Handled by Holly Events.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here with you guys and talk about wedding planning.
Yay! Let's just really dive into how you got started in wedding planning.
Okay, so kind of fun story, crazy story is that I got started in wedding planning really because my background is in church ministry. And so I was planning tons of church events, conferences, like big things like that. So all my girlfriends were coming to me being like, if you can plan that, you can definitely plan my wedding. And so I was planning friends' weddings. I went through that season of life where everyone does, and you have tons of friends who get married all at the same time. Planned all the fun weddings, and then fast forward a few years, and I had stepped out of a full-time ministry role, and a minister came to me and said, I have a couple, they're getting married, it's a few weeks out, and it is not planned. Would you come help plan the wedding? So I immediately was like, sure, that sounds fun, and I need something to do, right? But just jumped in, did it. It was amazing, and from that wedding, started getting other weddings, and it spiraled into a business. So it kind of fell in my lap. I say it's God for sure, and that's how Handled by Holly was birthed.
Wow, that's insane. I feel like churches and weddings, they like go hand in hand, especially. So like that's really cool that you like started out in ministry and then like found a calling also somewhere else, but also in a way that like links hand in hand with it.
Very true.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
It's cool. Honestly, it's one of those where it's like you're serving people,
yes,
ultimately, and you have to have the love of people, like to be able to do that. And you know, it's a people-based business, and so
absolutely,
it comes with difficulties. But honestly, like it's very rewarding though, because you have the privilege of being there on that wedding day, and especially you as a planner, you get the opportunity to map out their whole wedding day. What's their vision, and use your creativity and the experiences that you have to be able to shape their day so that it can go smoothly, experience it. But I know when you first started, how did you use your skill sets from ministry into the planning business and your process with that?
Yeah, I think something that really sets us apart is that we're huge on serving as a team, because that does come from that ministry heart, that Christian gospel heart. Like we want to serve people. We want their day to be so special that they remember like every single detail going so well, but that they also remember somebody like meeting them with a drink at the end of the aisle and smiling and like being thoughtful and all of those things. So I think a lot of those ministry skills translated over as far as serving people and also like building a team that desires to serve people. So I was in kids ministry, so I had a team under me who was helping to serve as well. And I think that has come over from ministry and has really ultimately just like set us apart as a business that loves to serve and loves to just make someone's day really special.
Yeah, I think that plays a huge part into all wedding days. And especially when you are a Christian business owner, you have that servant heart. Like you want to love like Jesus, you want to serve like Jesus, and like just emulate him in everything that you do. And I mean, I feel like I take that into my wedding days all the time. Like I'm like, how can I best like lay my hands on you and help guide you in any way, capture these moments the best way I can for you to look back on later? How can I best serve you even in the moment? Like, how can I help you put your veil in? How can I help you put your dress on? And like stuff like that. That's so important. And I mean, I feel like it's so important for wedding planning because you're with them all the time. However many, how often do like people book out in advance for you?
I mean, there's times when someone will book us a few weeks in advance, which is pretty crazy. It's a major plot twist and it's a lot of fun and high energy really in a short time.
You're like, let's go.
But then sometimes it's like a year and a half. Like I just had a wedding where we really built a relationship with the couple. And that's one of the things too, I feel like that came from ministry is almost like this counseling aspect a little bit that comes with it. So we hold their hand throughout the whole planning process, but then we're also there to talk about family dynamics or any of those things that they need like direction and help with throughout the process too. But if it's a year and a half or so, we get to build like a long relationship. We get to walk through lots of things with them. A lot of stuff can happen during that time. You know, we might like experience a family death or like preparing for a party or like all of these things. So we build like a really intimate connection with them. And I love that too.
Yeah. I bet you see brides at their most vulnerable too all the time.
Yes. Yeah. And there's always something that happens on a wedding day.
Yeah.
So we get to be there for them in that too, whether it be, you know, like something that happens with family or like a little mishap that happens. We get to be there to just be like a best friend who also has a lot of experience and education in the industry to know what to do, to pivot, and how to serve them best.
That's amazing. Honestly, the nice thing is when you have time to plan their wedding, you build that trust with them because then you're able to share your experiences, be able to guide them through those, you know, decision-making process and helping them in that way. But speak to me, how, when you first started, right? Did you like, what was the vision when you first started? When this was just laid on you?
Yeah.
Like God gave you this opportunity, you took advantage of it. Like what was the vision after that?
Yeah, initially it was just like, okay, these weddings are coming. Like, let's make them successful. Like, let's make it really sweet. Let's make it something the couples remember. And then as I like realized like, oh, this is what God's doing in my life. Like, this is the direction that we're walking. It was like, okay, how can I build this? How can we like advance this even more? And the awesome thing for us is, I'm sure you see it too, I would say probably 80% of our couples are not believers. And a lot of times they'll come back to us and say like something was different, or like I'll invite them to church and they'll be like, I would love to. Or, you know, there's like different opportunities where it like opens the door to build a relationship outside of wedding planning, but also outside of like the realm of like business where it's like, oh, this is part of our calling too in a lot of ways. So ultimately it was to continue to build the business, serve as many couples as possible, and love them the way Jesus does.
I love that. I know when I first started, like it was thrown at me. My journey was
Really?
not supposed to be this creative person at all whatsoever. I never even accepted the title like being a videographer creative until maybe like 4 years into this.
Yep. I get that. That's real.
Yeah. Like I went to school. I feel like an imposter. I went to school for business. Sure, I'm living out and having my own business.
Yeah.
But like that was not the goal for me. You know, I wanted to go like corporate America, do my own plans, but God, like, all right, nope. Like, I want you to take this class. I fell in love with it. And then the opportunity came actually from church. A couple asked me, like, hey, would you be willing to take our photos and video? And like, would you do our wedding? I said, sure. Yeah, I'll do it. And opened the door to a whole can of worms.
Wow. Yeah.
And I remember during that time is figuring out, it's like, okay, I've gotten this opportunity. Like, how can I use what I've learned, the skill sets, and apply it and to build this business? And I made so many mistakes in the first few years because there wasn't, you know, I think my mindset was very much like, oh, I know it all, rather than going out and asking and getting information and seeking advice from other people in doing this. And it was really cool seeing you, how your experience for ministry translating now into with the wedding planning business side, like as forming your business and shaping it. Did you seek any counsel or advice to like, okay, how do I want to form this?
Yeah.
I'm thrown into this situation. How do I go and continue forward?
Yeah. I think it's cool how God does things because when I left my full-time ministry position, I knew that I wanted to start a business of some sort, but I have a ministry degree. So I have no like concept of business, had no idea of what I was doing. But I did all the formation type stuff right away. And then when this business fell on me, I was like, oh, okay, this is what it is. Like, I want to sit around people, ask questions. My dad has owned a business since before I was born. Like, how do I do this? How do I do it well? And fumbling through some of the things in the beginning that are like business type things that you don't know until you like get into it. The people side was very, very easy for me, but the business side was more like, okay, I need to learn about these things. So sitting with planners going like, I don't even know how much you charge. Like, what do I charge? I've never created a contract. Like, what does this look like? What are things that need to be included? You know, like having a hurricane and being like, that's something that needs to go in the contract now.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, having a couple break up and being like, okay, well, I guess that goes in the contract too. You know, like experience is honestly the best teacher, but definitely walking through that first few years of learning a lot and still learn a lot every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally relate to you too. I got thrown into my business too, just like through COVID. So I was going to school and it never ended up finishing, but like COVID happened and everything was shut down. And I have my like mid-COVID crisis, as I say. And I was like, okay, what am I doing with my life? And then ended up like just pursuing this hobby turned career. And it's been literally the dream ever since. And like you said, my dad has also owned a business for like ever. So like, I feel like that is the hardest part is like, I'm like, okay, I got the hobby part. I got like the people part. It's just like learning the business aspect of things that I'm like still need help with. I'm like, how do I do this? How do I do all my back end stuff? And that's so important for a successful business to thrive is all the back end stuff.
And that's ever evolving. I feel like it's never going to be like set in stone, which is horrible and wonderful. But I feel like it's always evolving. You're always learning from other people like, oh, I can implement this new skill or, oh, I can implement this new tool, which is great too.
Absolutely. It comes with its challenges. You have to love challenges.
Yes.
If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, because you got to be able to pivot and adapt.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge skill set. But when you started like, you know, growing and doing your weddings and gaining that experience, how did your mindset or your approach to building a team come about and be able to now expand your services and replicate Holly for other couples to experience as well?
Yeah, I think that's something I learned in ministry is that like if you don't duplicate yourself, kind of like the vision dies with you, right? So if you don't have other people who know the vision, don't know how to serve people, love people, like ultimately you are your cap. So like it rises and falls on you as leader. So I knew day of, I need multiple people with me to make sure all the details are taken care of, even if that's initially like at a cost to us, because I want to make sure our couples are getting the absolute best service that they can. And then it started to dawn on me like, okay, we're getting multiple requests for a day. And as a planner, some take multiple on a Saturday. I don't. We're going to be there your entire day, 15 hours, like start to finish, the whole thing. So I knew I'm going to have to duplicate myself if we're going to want to, you know, start serving more couples. Yeah. So it has definitely been one of those like beautiful things and challenging things to like somewhat replicate yourself, but have individuals. Basically, you're replicating the culture, not your personality.
Yes.
Right.
Because I want our team to have their own personality, their own style and all of those things, but to serve in the same heart and manner that I would myself, you know, for couples. So that has been wonderful and challenging and it's super fun. I don't know. It's a ministry aspect where it's like, this is the hardest part, but it's also really beautiful.
Yeah. How many? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'd love for you to speak, like, how do you build that culture and forming that?
Yeah.
Because I know for myself, the hardest thing I found, especially depending how you want to take your business and depending on the direction, right?
Yeah.
So for example, if you want to do volume weddings, like, okay, it takes a team, it takes a lot of individuals, and forming a culture, the same mindset, like, hey, can you do what I do, but do it your own way, but keep the heart, you know, the same and the energy going into it.
Yeah.
And so, but I found it very difficult for myself. Like I'm putting myself out here vulnerability wise. It's like, it's hard to find quality people and it's hard to really, can they love it as much as I do and take that ownership with it. And so in terms of forming your culture and learning that through ministry, but how have you been able to form it for your business for them to serve couples?
Yeah, I mean, it is really hard. It's that trust aspect too.
Yes.
A lot of it too, people don't understand when they come in as an employee. A business owner, you are like putting blood, sweat, and tears in this thing. Like this thing keeps me up at night. Okay.
Yeah.
Like this is real. So this is something that I genuinely care about. And you won't always get that from team members and that's okay. But if they are willing to like replicate your heart, that is like huge. So for me, actions speak louder than words for sure. Like I'm constantly mentoring my planners that are under me. So we meet bi-weekly, we talk through all their things. They get to ask questions. We talk through their weddings and events and stuff going on. But then also too, I'm sometimes on their team for the day. And so I'm there to like serve and be a part of the team, show them, you know, and they're like, this is weird. My boss is like on my team right now. And I'm like, no, I'm here. Put me in. Like, what do you want me to do? And they see my actions too, where like, I'm going to be the last person through the buffet line, or I'm going to be the one who's on the ground changing the bride's shoes or things like that. And those little actions I feel like are the things that speak to your team. And they're like, okay, these core things are very valuable. And I say those things in different ways, almost like, marketing, you have to say
Yeah.
something 7 times for it to like stick.
Yep.
And so it's saying it in different ways to where the team is like, oh, okay, so we do whatever it takes to like make the bride's day really special.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we're focused on the couple all day long. Like there are those things that keep getting repeated, and then they see me do it too. So they know like, okay, this really matters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like everyone learns differently too.
Mm.
Like you have to adapt to everyone's personality of like, this person's maybe more experience based and they need to be hands on with it, or this person can have those like weekly meetings and they can verbally hear something and be like, okay, I'm going to implement that. So that's really, really cool to like play into everyone's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
Can you paint us the picture of what your team looks like? Like how many planners do you have?
Yeah.
And all that stuff.
So right now I have 4 planners under me, and then we have 15 day of assistants. So our team is like great and growing, and it's really cool because everybody does have different strengths, which is so fun when you're like brought to the table. Like even that's like the church, right? Like somebody's a finger, somebody's a foot, like we're all bringing our valuable things. And so it's super fun just to see everybody's like perspectives and personalities. And when we get planning is a lot of problem solving. So day of too, I might have an idea of how we can solve a problem, and my girls will each have a different idea. And I'm like, ooh, that one was a good one. Let's go with that idea. So like everybody's opinion is like welcome at the table too, and thoughts, because we each might have a different perspective that adds value ultimately.
Agreed.
So good.
So having 4 planners makes it easier for us to be able to reach more couples, serve more couples, and then building a team under us as well that are day of assistants. You'll always have at least a team of 2 at your wedding, but more than likely a team of 4. So somebody's picking up your lunch on the way. Somebody's like, helping to set up tables. Somebody's decorating your bridal suite. That's something we like to do, like at the end of the night, honeymoon suite. Just make it cute. They walk in, they're like, oh my word, like somebody came in and like set out our clothes and decorated everything. Just like little things to tell them like we truly value them. It's not a business to us.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
How has systems played a role in your business? Especially when you start from like nowhere, right? Like how has system played a role?
Okay, so Enneagram, I love the Enneagram. We were kind of talking about it already,
Yes.
but I'm a 2-wing 1. So 2, I'm like all about people. Like give me people all day long and I will be happy. But that 1 is there too, where it's like, okay, detail oriented, like all of those things. But systems is like the death of me, I feel like a lot of times, because it's ever evolving, right?
Yeah.
But like figuring out really good ways to stay organized. And that's also knowing your team might have a different way of doing it. So some of my girls like to be digital. I do everything digital during the week, but I want a binder at a wedding that has like every detail under the sun in it. I need insurance. I need all the things like just in case. So we all have different ways that we do things, but systems, we have Honeybook, to keep contracts organized, communication with our couples, things like that. We have bill pay, like for all the different like details behind the scenes that make for a successful day. But Honeybook is one of the best things that we have because it's very couple front for them. So they get like a beautiful experience on their end. And then on the back end, we have all those like details that go through communication as well.
No, I love it. Systems play a huge part for me. It's like it just gives you clarity, and then like it takes stress away from one aspect of things, especially if you're using like Honeybook, a good CRM. It just allows you to go ahead and just focus on your task. For example, for me, it's like, all right, I need to get to know the couple and know who they are, their story, a little bit about them, but streamline it where it doesn't take up too much of my time from editing and creating other films, but it doesn't make it such a hard task for the couple to complete for me.
Yeah.
And getting the information back.
Yeah. And something I'm sure you guys find too is like we want to build the relationship with them. We don't want them to feel like they're, 1 in a million. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're one of my 50 weddings that I have going on right now. Like, no, you are my full focus.
Yeah.
Like you can text me at any time. Like we'll talk about it. Like building that relationship is super important too.
Yeah.
And then having those systems, those checklists. As a planner, we live and die by checklist that we're walking throughout the year together, the months together.
I love it. How's your process or approach been to finding or connecting yourself with vendors that align that you can present to your couples that would add value to you, but also to the couple?
Yeah, that's a good question. So again, the people part, I love people. So always meeting new people at like different events, or like finding maybe a planner or a photographer on social and being like, hey, can I grab a cup of coffee with you and like get to know you? A lot of times it's fun to see in people's bios like, oh, they love Jesus too. Like we probably do business similar. they're probably going to desire to like serve the couple too. So I think when you have that opportunity to make really good relational connections, then when a couple comes to mind for me and I start talking through details with them and they say key things that are important to them, I'm like, oh, I know who's going to fit you. So and so, this photographer is going to fit you. So and so, this florist will totally get your vision. So building those relationships is key. Obviously, experiencing doing weddings together, but then also outside, like sitting around with somebody and getting to know them, kind of like this, and saying, you know, like, tell me about you, tell me about your story. Like, how did you get into this? And finding out values that are important to them too. And then that translates into like what's valuable to a couple.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think in a people-based industry, the key thing is loving people, like loving people. That's the whole point. And like making those genuine connections are so important, because at the end of the day, like we're serving people, so we should love people, because that's how we're best going to serve them and getting to know them. And well, that's so good.
And whether you come from like a full-time ministry background or like growing up in ministry, you know that like people come with lots of things. Like there's like such beautiful parts of people, but then there's also different personalities and like issues that come up. So the fact that we can like have this experience and all love each other well, I think the church has done a really great job of preparing us for that. So I love that part of it too.
Yeah, loving people well and giving them grace too.
Yes.
Like a lot of grace.
For sure.
I agree.
We see people at their highs and their lows.
Yes.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much. I know for me, it's one thing that's huge is that speaking about vendors and connecting with the right vendors is I take my job so serious of what I do and sacrifices behind the scenes that the couple will never know, other vendors or social media will never see. You know, I have to spend time away from my family or work on edits and work these next couple weekends, 7 days straight. And they're like, oh, wait, why don't you outsource to someone else to do that? I'm like, no, I'm delivering on my promise of what I said I was going to create.
Yeah.
And so that's my business, thing that I chose to do. However, it's if you have, team members or just other people there that doesn't have the same mindset or approach, it's very frustrating on wedding days when that person doesn't take that job so serious and what this moment means, because it's the first time that couple is getting married,
right? The one and only time.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And we go to a wedding every weekend or every other weekend or whatnot, and so it's just taking it serious each time for that couple and have that mindset approach. It's like, hey, we got to be at our best and prepare for that and give it all to that couple for that day, because literally they're investing in our livelihood.
And my team will repeat this back because they know I say it all the time, is like, we're training all throughout the week. And then it's like game day.
Yes.
Like we're going to like pour it all out on the field, blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes.
Like I want to see you exhausted at the end of the night because you served so hard, So like we've prepared for this. We've trained. Everything's organized. We're ready.
Yeah.
And then like we're going to show it.
It's so funny you say that, because that's the analogy I use for myself too. It's like wedding day. It's like I tell her, like, she's assisted me before for weddings. I'm like, I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm ready. It's like, it's game day. It's time to go on.
Those like game day nerves.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, it's go time.
It's go time. Like, and for me, watching film is literally editing a wedding. See all the little mistakes that I did. For example, how can I improve better as a videographer? Oh, if I'm editing my weddings and I can see the little imperfections and things that's within that day, it's like, oh, how could I got in that intimate moment with the bride and groom better? Well, have you thought about miking up the bride and groom all day long and figuring out what are the tools in order to do that? So now you can portray that in a film and then illustrate that in your work and then market it out. Like, so it's being very intentional with everything. And that's why it's like, if you're going to be an artist and call yourself this, is putting in that work and doing it so that you can.
Well, I think you just highlighted another thing that's so important in business too, is that you're teachable.
Yes.
So like that's the important part for team too, is like, are we jiving together? Because you have to be like teachable. I lay in bed at the end of a wedding going like, okay, was there anything I could have done better? Like, was there anything that missed? Oh, did I put like her bouquet in her room? Like I'm thinking through all the details still. And so I think the best people that are on your team are people who also want to learn and grow and be teachable to ultimately like have a better experience for each couple.
I love it.
Yeah.
What's been something that you've been taught from your team that it's really been eye-opening, that's like, oh wow, I didn't see it from that way or that.
I would say definitely like being open to other people's perspective, being able to see from somebody else's like point of view. I think a lot of times, one, I'm normally the oldest person on my team. So I have like a Gen Zer come in and go like, did you think about doing this? Or, what about that? And it's eye-opening to learn from the people on my team too, and then gain somebody else's perspective too.
Yeah, I think that's really like godly too. Like, I mean, we all have our own unique eye like given from God, which is really cool so that everyone can bring something different to the table. And that's why leadership is so important. That's why team building is so important, because it's going to help you grow. And like, yes, maybe could I, when you're first hiring somebody, or like you could do it easier or faster or anything like that. Yes, but are you like bringing up people under you and like you said, like enhancing the vision like continuously?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, that's
There's
so
a
good.
lot of investment when you bring people on the team
Yeah.
too, which is again the like wonderful part and the hard part, because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I just made like a huge investment and then they weren't the right fit. You know, like we spend a lot of time together. But it's also really beautiful because I have people on my team who, when they do or say something, I'm like, they got it. They caught the vision. That's so awesome.
That
like
must be so rewarding.
it's so rewarding where I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like I know I can trust them. The couple's getting a great experience. Like they're duplicatable and like humble, all the things.
Yeah,
which is great.
And it's a test to you too, like being their leader and being their teacher, and you're like, I did something right, like,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
you're,
I did 100 things wrong.
The proud
before.
moment right there.
yeah. But I
Yeah,
caught
you're
the
like,
one good thing. Yeah.
yes, no, for sure.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's amazing.
Every guy wants to know the money questions.
Oh, really?
Whenever I go to SEU and do a class, every single guy who raises a hand, it has to do with money.
Really?
Like, tell me about how much it's going to cost. Tell me about budget. Tell me about how I can do,
Wow.
It's always about that.
You know, it's I was speaking to this.
Okay.
It's pretty funny that like being on the vendor side, I care more about experience than anything. But like if my wife asks me like, hey, we're gonna do something, my mind flips to the money side.
Oh, okay. Yes, that totally makes sense.
So if
yeah.
I'm on that side, I'm like, all right, how much is gonna cost?
Right.
What am I getting for what I'm paying for? And do I value this or not?
I think because if we're honest, we've seen it not done well.
Yes.
So we're like, this is where you should pay for quality.
Very much.
Ooh, that's so
Very
good.
much. I think planning is one of those that you want to invest into. Make sure it's done right. You can trust that person. Don't settle for less on that. And keep the expectation high, and and build that relationship and trust. And I believe that also as well for your creative team. Like your photographer, make sure you can connect well with them. Your hair and makeup, like you want to make sure that you like what they produce for you.
Yeah.
Because their makeup, their artistry is going to be on your face and your photos forever.
For sure. Like when I do an intro chat with a couple, I always say like, interview me too. Like interview whoever you're thinking about as a planner too. Because we want to have like the chemistry. We want to be, you're going to spend a lot of time with me, like, or one of my girls. Like you want to make sure that we click, that we value some of the similar things. Like you want this experience to be enjoyable. So interview me too. And if I'm not a fit, like cool too. Like maybe I can help you find somebody in the area who would be a better fit.
Yeah,
for sure.
and that's something that I focus on too as well. Like, hey, if I have a date open and the couple like, hey, I want to schedule a call, I want to get to know you first. And sure, I want to give you all the information that you need, but also I want to make sure this is a good fit. Yeah. That way we're able to serve them the best. And like, for example, if you're doing an elopement in the mountains, I might not be that person for you. Yeah. I don't have all the resources. I'm not an expert in that field where I can guide you and make sure everything turns out incredible, right? Because there's more to it than just the videography side of capturing it.
For sure.
It's like there's definitely an educational aspect of knowing their permits, what you're able to do, what you can and cannot do, and that affects the vision of the final product, which is being their film.
Yeah, that's cool.
What is your process for your creative team? So for example, if a couple is inquiring for you for full wedding planning, how do you go about if selecting their photographer, their videographer, DJ, stuff like that? Like, what's that process look like? And because the reason I bring it up is I found a disconnect when it comes to planners at times with creative team members, like bringing them on. For example, like I know you definitely got to ask, hey, are you available first? Because you don't want to waste nobody's time there. And then if the price point is on the website, asking price points. But then it's those two at times, and where the venue is and the name of the couple, or sometimes I don't ever get the name of the couples and it disappears and it goes blank. You never hear back, so you're ghosted.
Interesting.
So from as like us vendors, like great, cool, I know it's a lead.
Yeah.
Didn't materialize in anything.
Yeah.
But like full wedding plan, and then I've had where it's like, okay, we're available, perfect. Can you just send the contract over? that right there, it kind of like,
That's a little yellow flag too.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
because and like now I'm like, oh, I'm setting myself for failure. I don't know this couple. We haven't built this relationship, and for me, it affects the final product
Oh,
because
yeah.
I reference all of those interactions to create that film.
Yeah.
So what's your process
So
like?
for us, when we onboard a couple, we do a 20-minute intro chat, we call it, and we're just getting to know them, seeing if we're a good fit for them, hearing a little bit about the vision of their day, if they know. Sometimes they get on and we're like, I don't know, we just got engaged. Like,
Yeah.
we don't know what we like, all these things. And they don't know what they don't know, right? This
Exactly.
is like a totally foreign concept. A lot of times we can be speaking a different language because they really don't know. But we get to know them. And then our first planning session that we do, whether virtually in person, we talk about the things that are important to them. And so if we're, talking about a $40,000 budget and they're like, a meal is so important to me. Like, I want to make sure that our guests have the most amazing meal. Then we start to say, okay, we're going to put a decent amount of the budget towards that. Okay, photos are really important to me. I always tell them, like, tip is that photos are the most important because they're the things that last forever.
I'll argue, but go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm like side-eyeing.
And
Javier.
video.
I'm
I mean,
like,
like,
I would
yeah.
say I'll put priority on photos first, but to relive the moment.
To relive the moment, it's a video too. But that being
yeah.
said, is like, don't spend $2,000 or $10,000 on a like cake if that's not what's important to you, because you get to see those photos in 20 years and share them with your kids and grandkids. Like that's priority. So I always say if they don't know where to start, I'm like, let's talk about photo and video, and then we start talking through style. And a lot of times they're like, what does that mean? Like, okay, is there a certain like editing style that you see? Show me somebody you like on Instagram. Show me somebody you like on Pinterest or something, some images. And then we kind of talk through those details. And then based on the relationships that we've built, we can say, oh, I think this person would be a really great fit for you. They're within budget. We create that whole budget. They have a style that's similar to what you like, those types of things. And a lot of times that's how we build our team, is based on the things that are important to the couple, the budget, and then who we know connects with both of those things.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's cool that you educate and guide them through that process, because like you said, they don't know what they don't know. And I hear that all the time from brides where they're like, I just didn't know where to start. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because you do get jumped into this most exciting time and there's no guideline for where you should start and where to go from there.
Yeah.
So that's why having a planner is so important.
My turn. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Having a planner is so important because you can guide them through all of this and educate them on like all things that even don't like pertain to the wedding planning aspect of things. Like, you like this style of photography and this style of photography, that's called like this, and this person does that really well. And let's see if you vibe with them. That's really cool. I love that.
I agree.
So important for planners to do that.
I'm gonna put you on the spot right here, though.
Oh,
ready.
no.
Ready? All right. Who do you think is more important for rehearsal dinner, photo or video?
Bruh.
Don't do this to me. This feels like no. I don't know. I think you definitely do look back at video more for that occasion for some reason. I don't know why. Would you say yes?
I would agree.
Okay.
Yes. But the funny thing is, it doesn't happen often for me in terms of like rehearsal dinner or welcome parties. Because rehearsal dinners, one, it gives you the opportunity to capture speeches and get rid of speeches and helps timeline for your wedding day. And then it's almost like, think of rehearsal dinner or the welcome party as a reception. That's more of the video element because you can make the atmosphere and feel it and show it off, show the emotions, the day.
I was gonna say, it almost feels like a family event, which you want video for. When you look back at photos, you're like, oh, those are cute. But then you're like, oh, I want to like feel like I'm there, relive that moment.
So that's why I'm pushing out there just to get insight on that.
Yeah, you got to make a reel
do
or
rehearsal
something
dinner
about that.
video.
Yes.
Yeah, because I feel like for my clients, when all of my packages include engagement sessions, and sometimes they already have the engagement session, so I'm like, however that hour or 2 hours best serves you is where we'll put it.
Yeah.
So if you want rehearsal dinner coverage, we can move it there. And I feel like that's majority of the time when I do get rehearsal dinner coverage is they already have engagement photos. Now they just want to have some photos of the rehearsal. Or if I'm traveling out of state for a wedding, I do that too. Which is super fun because I get to meet the family beforehand. I think it's fun for photo just for like a selfish aspect of like I get to meet you guys and I get the vibes right away, and I feel like it makes my brides and grooms more comfortable with me. It
makes the day more successful for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially if they don't have an engagement session and like we've only met on Google Meet, or we only met once 20 minutes for coffee or whatever that looks like. But I feel like I never have someone that's like, and we want to book you for rehearsal dinner.
Yeah.
It's normally just like wherever that like, oh, that complimentary hour, 2 hours fits into rehearsal dinner.
I know for myself, I've been making a standard in one of my packages where I'm always there for a rehearsal dinner.
I love that.
That way it's like, hey, you're going to get way better product at the end of the day,
sure.
better experience. Gives me much more footage to reference. Now I know who are certain members. Like, for example, I'm telling a story. So you guys are the protagonists. I already know that. But who are your supporting characters? To bring you guys up. And so I really take my job seriously. But it's just finding those people. And if I can get, for example, what makes a video, it's speeches, the officiant, the ceremony, any in-between moments, all these things to create a really good product. But if I'm not afforded the opportunity, then it's like, oh man, like, there's so much more potential that you left out and capturing those memories. That's like, man, it could have been way better. And it's funny because I do have a few weddings that I am doing rehearsal dinner coverage for, which is I'm really excited for. But I know for one coming up, I had the final call with the bride, and she was like, I'm so happy that we're doing a rehearsal dinner with you, because that way we can knock out majority of the speeches. And that way on wedding day, we only have to do like one.
Love it.
And she was just thrilled about that. And it was funny because it was brought to my attention from another planner. It's like, like, I love rehearsal dinner because of speeches, and you knock them out the way. And it validated the reason why the bride liked the same way and wanted to have it there. And I was like, sweet. I love it.
Sweet. And it highlights for you guys like the key players of the day.
Yes.
Like, who's the best man? Who's the maid of honor? Who's the mom who's going to be a wild card? Who's the dad who's paying for everything? Like any of that kind of stuff. Like, it's just like, who are my key people that I need to be aware of that day?
And that way I can reference it in the film. I can look for them on wedding day, and I can see them in, with their family or doing whatever, capture them and add them into the film when they're speaking about, like, hey, for example, Ashley is charismatic and energetic. Because Luke is saying that, and now I can actually find these clips of Ashley and reference into the film.
That's cool.
And piece it together.
Yeah, for sure. And from a photo standpoint too, like when you do know those key players, I'm not just looking at the bride and groom during like cocktail hour or anything like that. I'm looking for mom and who's she talking to and why is she talking to that person, and then they're hugging and then snaps out. All right. And then like, where's dad and where's maid of honor and who's she talking to, and you know what I mean? So then you have more of those storyline elements and smaller moments that my ideal like compliment is when the bride and groom are like, you captured so much love from not just us but our family, and you gave us moments that we didn't even know happened.
That's sweet.
That is the best.
That's
I love that.
sweet.
And that's my goal. I'm like, they're like, we got to relive moments that we weren't even a part of.
Yes.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Why you should also have a second shooter so they can be at cocktail hour and I can do family photos.
Definitely.
But it's just like, that's one of my missions for sure.
Yeah.
So it's so important.
Because this is also one of the rare times that like all the people you love are in one building.
Yes.
So it's like, maybe grandma's sick and these are going to be like the last few photos with her, or like things like that. Like all of your people are there. And so you want to definitely have like amazing photo and video for those, because you want to remember them forever.
One of the cool moments I just had, one of my brides emailed me. I did her wedding in Wisconsin, and she emailed me and told me, it's like, hey, everybody took the rule of having no phones out so seriously throughout the whole wedding day.
Wow.
That they had no footage of the first dance. And I include in their film, but they're bite-sized moments. But she's like, hey, do you have any raw clips of the first dance, mother-son dance, father-daughter dance? And I was like, yes, I do. And so like I was able to piece it together. And because I mic up the bride and the groom, it's like they have their little own conversations there. And then with dad too as well, and those sweet little moments that I'm able to send to them, and they have those moments preserved.
That's cute.
And that's like rewarding for me. It's like, those are the little things that social media probably never see, or, because a lot of, there's a lot of people like the eye candy stuff though. Wow, the details, the crazy event or whatnot. But it's really those heartfelt moments of the reason why they trusted me to capture their wedding day. And it's like another videographer only takes a few clips, 30 seconds, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
While no, we capture the whole thing because of those moments. It can happen.
Right.
And you want to make sure you have it because, they put so much time and effort. Why don't you want to have those moments preserved for them?
Yeah. And that goes back to like the importance of investment, right? So like a lot of the questions are always come down to budget, but like there are certain things that you definitely want to invest in, because on the other side, you'll regret it. Yeah. Like I've had couples that said like, you're too expensive. Like we're not going to be able to use you. And then they come back later because they're like, we hired a different planner and it wasn't the experience we were hoping for or that you described. Same with like photo and video. You never want to look back and be like, I wish I would have spent good money on photo and video, because again, it's a once in a lifetime thing. Like invest in what's important for sure.
Agree.
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the only two things you're gonna have is
Yeah.
is
the
the photos and
experience and the
video.
photo and video. Yep.
Exactly. Oh, I'd love to know a little bit more about your couples. Who are the couples that you're really serving, that you're attracting, that you're bringing in for your company?
Yeah, like our ideal couple is a couple that like one absolutely loves each other, right? Like there's that warm feeling. They are so excited for their day, but also they like value their day. So they're not coming to us saying like, okay, we want to like bare minimum, just like how much, like a groom, how much can
Yeah.
I get by with for a wedding or things like that. But they're like, this day is important to us because it is literally, sacred. Like we're starting our marriage off well, all of those things. In the same aspect, the ministry side of me says like, don't focus just on the day, but like prepare for your marriage for like more, make sure you're doing premarital counseling, make sure you're investing in the things that are important for the long term too.
Yes.
But our ideal couple is like, full of love. They're excited for their day. They dream of something really special and they're willing to make sacrifices to make that happen.
Wow. That's beautiful. Because that's when it makes it much more fulfilling of being able to do that, when they're intentional also about
Yes.
the day itself. And you're guiding them throughout that whole experience and that journey.
Yeah, for sure. And they're kind. Like I love a kind couple, right? Like
Yes.
we get all the emotions and all the things too. Like that's part of a wedding that a lot of people don't think about, is that there's going to be so many emotions a part of this day. Anxiety, fear, excitement, joy. And sometimes they look like each other. So you're like, I'm freaking out. I don't know why, but it's like a good freak out. So we're there for all those different feelings and emotions and get to walk through that with them and see like the highs and the lows and process all the things. So it's couples too that are very relational and want to be intentional about that too.
Has there been any eye-opening experience that from ministry now into the wedding planning side that's opened your eyes like, oh, this is very different?
As far as like an experience with a couple
or a business, anything that you like from any perspective, from either the business side, system side, or from the couple side, relationships.
Yeah, I think there's been lots of like vendor side where I'm like, oh, like I'm coming out of the church world. I didn't expect that. Like that comment was like super off the cuff, or like I wasn't prepared for this response.
Yes.
So I think there's moments where it's like a little bit jarring and I'm like have to remind myself like, okay, I didn't expect that. Like this is more the like world side. Like I wasn't prepared for that, but like how can I like love them well in this moment or things like that. But for couples, we always are a part of so many relational dynamic moments, like on a wedding day when a parent maybe has an argument with the bride or things like that. We're there to like step in for all of those things. And I think seeing some of that kind of stuff too from the ministry side is eye-opening, but also like I'm more prepared for that because of that.
I love
Right.
it.
Do you have any crazy wedding stories?
Of course I do.
Pretty, ugly, crazy. It could be pretty, ugly, crazy.
Yeah, I
Anything,
mean,
like-
I have lots of stories, good, bad, and different, all the things. But probably one that takes the cake is the groom got in a brawl right after the wedding. So someone found me and was like, the bride's going up to the honeymoon suite. Where's the groom? And I was like,
Also, not together. What?
yeah, I don't know what's that about, kind of deal. And so anyways, come to find out he and one of the groomsmen had gone outside and just like had it out. When I found him, he had a black eye and a bloody nose. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
Boys, what just happened?
Literally, boys.
What just happened? But yeah, like I think again, there's so many emotions in a day that like
Emotions
you
are high.
have to, yes, emotions are so high. So we talk about a lot on the front side, like expectations. So, okay, as a bride, do you expect to have your groom in the honeymoon suite at the end of the night? Like, let's talk about some of these expectations, because there are couples who maybe they've lived together for a few years and they're like, we want to have a party, an after party with all of our friends. Okay, that's awesome. That's what he wants. Let's talk about what you want. So let's make sure all the expectations are laid out, because day of, all these emotions are going to be high. We can't be going off the rails. Like, let's talk about some of these things. Your mom's got a different expectations than you do, like, just like, let's talk through everybody's, because everything is going to kind of like rise and fall on that.
Yeah.
And if you can prepare yourself for things in different ways, then your emotions will also be able to like meet it in a positive way, for the most part. So
that's huge.
Yeah.
That's
a lot of it.
Oh, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen on a wedding day. So
There are.
Yeah. figuring that
One of
all
my
out.
favorite jobs, though, I'm a big sister in every regard in real life, but also I'll tell my brides that too, like, if you don't want somebody in the bridal suite or like any of those things, like I will be the bad guy. Like I'll fall on the sword all day long. So tell me what you do want, tell me what you don't want, and so that day, a lot of times I'll get like somebody pulling me to the side, like, could you tell that guest to do X, Y, and Z? Or, you know, and I'm like,
Yeah.
on it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So all of those things kind of like laying out early is good too.
I love it. And honestly, like, you have the most point of contact with the couple, you know, from all the vendors, really, especially if it's full wedding planning.
Yeah.
And you get the opportunity to build that trust and that relationship with them where, hey, you know, they confide in you and they can trust you to do certain things, you know, their vision, but also relate that to the other vendors involved as well.
For sure.
So it's really cool that you get to get the whole perspective.
Yes.
Because for me, for video, I only look into their story. I only look into certain things that I'm needing to accomplish my mission for their wedding day.
Yeah.
And same thing for photography, right? But
thing.
you have the full picture of the whole day and from different elements, from the vendor's side to understand what's the right team, to the couple, their wants, their desires, the parents navigating those relationships too as well. It's not easy. So I got to give planners a lot of credit on that side.
Yeah.
It's like it takes a special person, and so you coming from ministry and having that heart to serve is huge, and it really does take a special person to be a planner.
Yeah. And that's why you have to choose your planner so carefully too, is because you are not just you getting to know them and their vision, but they're also getting to know you. Like if you do have a situation like that where it's like, hey, can you tell this guest to get out, and you have a planner that's not super confrontational and they're not really going to serve you the best, or like they're just or they're not even in the bridal suite, they're out doing table stuff and whatever, and like
or
you're like, where's my
designs,
planner, and like all that stuff, like,
or they're one of the more aggressive personalities and you're like, I don't want it handled that way either, you know, like
right.
Sure.
That's why it's so important to know who your vendors are, because sometimes like you do want a planner like that is more aggressive, that like is going to take that aggressive approach and like stuff like that, if that works with your family dynamic, you know what I mean? Or you know, you want it handled more with love. Like that's why it's so important. You got to get to know everybody.
A successful team, like a day of team on every vendor side, is so important. Like your vendors have to mesh well together too, because that definitely contributes to like a successful day too, you know?
Schedule consultations with your vendors.
Yes.
I mean, especially your creative team and your planners. I don't know about catering.
Or
certain,
hop on a call.
Or transportation, certain things, right? But like, especially your creative team, your planners, like get to know them, because they're gonna be the ones serving you, especially photo and video, because at the end of the day, this is the product that we have that we laid out for you, and hopefully we got it right for you. They can trust. Like the biggest compliment I get is with the couples I've been able to serve in, you know, these past 2 years, is like, hey, we trust in your vision. Like you have full creative control to do what you do because we believe in your talent.
That's an amazing compliment.
That is the best thing ever. And it's so fulfilling for me, because I'm like, great. Like, you know, and I take the time to get to know them, and they open up and share. And even they're not willing to share, but if they're willing just to show a little bit vulnerability, it allows me to like tap into that. And I tell them like, hey, this is an emotional transaction, because I need the emotion in order to create. And so the more you share, you know, the more I'm able to connect with you guys, and I just attach to it. And that's what allows me to create.
That's cool.
You know, it's been a privilege to be able to have that trust from the couples to say, hey, you have full reins. I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And that's probably why they feel that way, is because they like see how much you handle everything with care and how much you like want to get to know them. They're probably like, oh yeah, Javi's got it. Like he knows me, he knows what I want. And that's why they give you that control.
Definitely.
So important. Question: do you have any wedding hot takes? Anything that you like, or just like have a controversial
like love,
standpoint
don't
on?
like all the things? Okay, so these days I'm like, don't spend any money on favors. Like they get tossed out a lot of times. People don't care about them anymore. Like things like that. Let's put that money towards something else that's more important. I know a lot of times for parents, they're like, we want the giant wedding cake still. That's like huge, all those things. It seems like couples really just more enjoy that like intimate moment. So I definitely am like, whatever's better for you guys, but the smaller cake a lot of times is like that sweet moment, your private cutting, all of that jazz. But yeah, those would probably be some of my good ones.
Yeah, I love that.
Toss the favors.
Yeah, get the favors out of here. I've heard that like a lot of people are really into the matchbook. Like I saw that on TikTok the other day where someone was like, get rid of all favors except matchbooks. I want the matchbook. I will take that at every wedding.
That's hilarious. This sounds like a personal request. I have like a whole like mason jar of matchboxes. I'm like, I don't need another matchbox.
Oh man.
But yeah,
you're like couldn't be
candles
still
lit. Yeah, check.
All candles in my house lit all the time. That's so funny.
Question.
Yes.
A hot take here, yes.
Okay.
Do you feel as a planner, or do you feel like there should be two distinction between like a planning company that focuses heavily on design versus experience?
Ooh, why can't we have both in one? That's a good question, though.
Yes.
I think one thing that I have like a huge hot take distinction on, which I think a lot of planners do, is like venue coordination, venue planning, and then like a planning company that handles that portion. Because a lot of times a couple will come to us and they'll be like, well, we just wanted to ask you what you do because we already have a venue planner or we already have a venue coordinator. And I'm like, that's awesome. Do you know what that is? Like, let's talk about that because you're going to be super let down if you think that they're going to hold your hand throughout this entire process. So that's definitely something that I lean more a little towards. From a design planning perspective, a lot of times like a high-end wedding wants somebody who's like really focused on the design portion. A lot of times I find that you can find a really good planner who does both well, but you have to be willing to invest.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Now, on that front, right? Do you believe what should be the thing? Like, what should be the approach, or what would be your approach better? Would you be, if they're heavily focusing on design and you're leading it, would you be at the design portion of it or with the couple portion of it?
Personal preference, I would be with a couple portion of it for sure. And then I would hire like a phenomenal, amazing like florist, design team, all the things. Like I'm good at it, but that's not like my main strength. So I would bring people in who are phenomenal at that. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Do you have a favorite Bible verse?
Yes. My favorite, which I feel like is a lot of people's, is Jeremiah 29:11. Because honestly, like knowing like God has a plan, like all of these things that take place in our lives are so important. And ultimately, like he's leading and guiding us through all of this because this was not my plan from day one. This was not your plan or your plan from day one. But ultimately, like God had a plan for this all along.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Holly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and chatting with us all things wedding planning, getting a deeper dive into it.
It was so much fun. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, of course. Pleasure. Where can they find you?
Handledbyhollyevents.com. Also on social, handledbyholly.events. Those are good places to start.
Javi, where can they find you?
At sundial.creatives and at sundialcreatives.com.
And you can find me at Ashley Jade Photography LLC on Instagram and TikTok, and also through my website. And you can find us at the 2717 podcast on Instagram and TikTok, and also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you watch or listen. We're happy you're here. So we will catch you guys in the next episode. Bye.